Hello, BookTube. Well, I have a little mail haul for you. Before you go getting excited, I recognize that yesterday in our mail haul, I did not exactly cover myself in glory. And not only did I go on a rant of 40 minutes that was so egregious, I had to stop the video and start it over again. Despite, one of the foremost precepts of doing this sort of thing, which is that you can't redo a mail haul. Not only was that true, but also even in the second take, when I controlled myself on one point, I still lost control on another point by going after a poorly written pub sheet as if I couldn't overlook such things when we're all bigger than that. So, today's mail haul is going to be much better controlled. We have only 2 packages. One of them's a box. I deliberately didn't wait for more mail to accumulate because I can handle 2. We will do 2 packages and we will do them in a civilized manner. So, let's start with the first one. We'll start with the first one. It's one of these big white envelopes. It's fairly heavy. Could be a finished copy. Let's see what we have here. No, it's not a finished copy. It's a big advanced copy. What have we got here? So this is from Soho. The folks at Soho Crime, who've come out with so many books that I have loved. Okay. All right. I don't recognize this. This comes out in mid-April in hardcover. Yeah, hardcover, yes, almost $30, $27.95. And this is a translated work of crime fiction. This is something called Lady Joker Volume 1 by Kaoru Takamura, translated from the Japanese by Marie Leda and Alison Markin Powell, and presented by Soho in a very stark, at least the advanced copy, a very stark black cover. I would love it if they did this, if this was the actual cover of the book. Just black offset on black. That would be so great. I don't know that it's going to be. We shall see. And then you've got Yoko Ogawa, the author of The Memory Police, has a full back blurb. So this is the advanced copy. I have no idea from this. Ordinarily, publishers, when they get this interesting in the advanced copy, it doesn't translate to the finished copy. So no idea what this thing will eventually look like. But let's see what we've got here. Since its Japanese publication in 1997, good Lord, 1997, the author's sublimely detailed epic of crime and decline has pushed beyond the stigma surrounding the genre and shattered the Japanese literary glass ceiling. Didn't know there was one. I didn't know there was a literary glass ceiling in Japan. Is that true? Those of you who are in Japan, is that your take on the matter? Aren't several of the what I call the several practitioners today, very popular practitioners of what I refer to as Japanese zombie fiction, aren't several of those young women? You know the type of zombie fiction that I mean, where not only is there no plot, of course, we're not asking even Western contemporary fiction to have anything so strenuous as a plot, but also where the main characters shuffle instead of walk. They never look at anything. Their eyes are half closed. They sleep most of the time. They work in menial, pointless jobs throughout the entire course of the book and never aspire to or move beyond that. There is no dramatic arc. Everyone is defeated, everyone is beaten, everyone is standing in the rain with no protection whatsoever, even though they've got an unopened umbrella in their hand. Just Japanese nihilist zombie fiction. Aren't most of the practitioners of that, who are at least the ones who've made it over to the West, women? I didn't know there was a Japanese literary glass ceiling. I'm not sure how that would work, considering that the first and greatest novel of them all was written by a woman. But let's see, a Japanese woman, no less. But this is a novel about the sweeping dissatisfaction felt by those left behind by a culture whose new gods find no sacrifice too insignificant, no cost-cutting measure too inhumane, and no individual indispensable. So this could be Japanese zombie crime fiction, where there is a crack detective on the case, but he doesn't solve it because who cares? Spurned and ostracized, driven to grief and desperation, the criminals at the heart of this groundbreaking heist story want what society has denied them: belonging, dignity, power, revenge. Bet they also want something they can sell. I bet they do, or they wouldn't be in a heist drama, now would they? They will purchase this with fear and outrage and pay whatever it takes. Lady Joker, and this is only volume 1. This is a hefty sized thing. It's only volume 1. Lady Joker centers on a kidnapping inspired by the true crime Glico Morinaga case, the monster with 21 faces, whose kidnappings and food chain sabotage terrorized Japan for 18 months. But the novel also offers a sweeping portrait of boardrooms, newsrooms, cop shops, bars, private clubs, a kaleidoscope accounting of Japanese cultural norms and taboos over 4 decades. Good Lord, I'm intrigued already. Those of you who are maybe in Japan, do you know this? Is it? I mean, is Volume 2 every bit as big? Is it a big deal for Soho to be bringing this over in English? I'd love to know more about this. I don't. Every single step involved with a literary undertaking like this is daunting. To start, there is the challenge of the novel itself, a 1,000-page magnum opus to be published in 2 volumes 1 year apart that provides a lasting and astute critical portrait of an entire society. Oh my, now I want the 1 volume. So this does not exist in English. We're absolutely sure. I cannot read Japanese. This does not, we're sure this does not exist in English. Does it exist in 1 volume translated into any other language? Not English. And if so, what? Which ones? Now, this is going to be in 2 volumes, but it's a 1-volume work. Okay. All right. Then there is the actual work of translation. Lady Joker is a heady, cerebral, and detailed work. It is a sprawl of minutiae that straddles post-war Japanese culture and fully renders 27 characters with each of their ethnic and social realities, including groundbreaking depictions of Japanese segregated Burakumin community and the Zainichi, Japanese-born ethnic Koreans. Even the usually lazy process of finding reading comps is daunting. The books that come to mind while reading comps, I assume, is reading comparisons. I assume that's what that means. The books that come to mind while reading Takamura's classic are not to be mentioned casually. James Ellroy's American Tabloid, Marlon James's A Brief History of 7 Killings, and Don DeLillo's Underworld. Okay. Just from the description, I don't know anything about this book, but just from the description, the first thing that came to mind for me is Vikram Chandra's Sacred Games. Not any of those 3. Certainly not the DeLillo, but maybe so. Maybe so. There is something here of David Foster Wallace, too, if you are not already feeling too incredulous. We can hope not. We can hope the author has some shred of literary control and also literary ability. That would be great. And then a bunch of blurbs. The back is a bunch of blurbs. Ushio Magazine, Shukan Bunshun, which is translated as the Literary Weekly. None of these places have ever run anything by Steve. And now I know they exist, I would kind of like them to. Do any of them have English language content? What's the biggest English language newspaper in, let's say, Tokyo, that has an original art section coverage, that does book reviews, that doesn't just buy them from the Washington Post or whatever, but that runs original work? What's the biggest English language newspaper in Tokyo that does that? Who else do we have here? The Shosetsu Subaru Literary Magazine? I don't know any of these things. Are they only in Japan? Are they only in Japanese? Or, I mean, the blurbs are in English. Now I want to know about these things and whether or not they take sexy young American work. And also Yomiuri newspaper, which I gather also does book reviews. Okay, well, that's a lot of Japanese venues that suddenly have me yearning to appear in a Japanese venue. That would be great. It's not all northern Georgia, after all. But what about the author? Kaoru Takamura was born in Osaka in 1953 and is the author of 13 novels. Her debut, Grab the Money and Run, won the 1990 Japan Mystery and Suspense Grand Prize. And since then, her work has been recognized with many of Japan's most prestigious awards for literary fiction as well as crime fiction. And Lady Joker is her first novel to be translated into English. It received awards and has been adapted into both film and a television series. And have you seen that? Have any of you seen either the film or the television series? Wow, this is her first book to be translated into English. And yet from that author description, you get the sense right away that this is someone who's had a huge career. And you have to wonder, I have to wonder, given the relatively timid state of American translated literature. I mean, it's better now than it ever was, but still, it's relatively timid. You have to wonder what stories like this are out there, that other stories out there that have not been translated, that I don't know anything about. My patch. is English language or English language translated literature published in the American book market in the year in which I live. That is all. I am not going hunting afield. So I have enough to cover as it is. And if you think that's a little incurious of me, show me somebody who covers as much as I do. I have enough to cover as it is, but I would love to know. I now want to know everything about this. I guess I will read it first, but now I want to know about the one volume. Is the one volume available in any language other than Japanese? Okay, so our first one is incredibly intriguing. Lady Joker by Kaoru Takamura. Big black thing coming out. This is just the first half of it coming out from Soho Press. Fantastic. Okay, and now we have the box. And we can only hope that the box is anywhere near as intriguing as the paperback was. The box is also heavy, so it also could be a finished copy. Let's see what we have here. I was wrong about that the first time. This is a box that really can't be salvaged. I am saving some of my boxes because I am slowly starting to mail things out again. But this is one that can't really be salvaged. Oh, fantastic. Oh, great. Okay. Wonderful. All right, well, this is a good mail haul then, and no rants are forthcoming. Fantastic. Okay, this is the finished copy of Hermione Lee's biography of Tom Stoppard. Great big thing that has the young author on the spine. Those of you who are worried that maybe the thing that's going to kill him is missing from the young author photo, it's not. It's in the other hand. He was never photographed when he wasn't smoking, so... and he's never actually, in the last 20 or 30 years, he's never actually been seen anywhere in any capacity. Privately, publicly, dinners, at his home, debuts, whatever, without him being in the process of burning his own lung tissue. So don't be worried. Those of you who are worried that maybe he was losing cool points. No, he's still cool. But anyway, this is obviously a major work. It's a big full-dress biography of Stoppard that was done with his help. Done with his with as much collaboration as possible. He assured Hermione Lee throughout the process that he was not exercising any kind of editorial control. She could still come to any conclusions that she wanted, but this is a living biographer working hand in hand with a living playwright to write his life. It's hard to imagine that Stockholm Syndrome wouldn't set in. It's hard to imagine that this is actually a bare knuckle thing. And I have read it, and it doesn't seem that way. I won't say that it seems deceitful to me. Never at any point did it seem deceitful to me. It's very thoroughgoing, but it's also loving. It's also very affectionate. And when I was finished with it, I was eager for the finished copy. Very glad that I have it because it's blistered with names and places, and you need a working index for that, really, if you're going to review it. And I am going to review this. I am commissioned to review this, so I'm very glad to have that. But when I finished with it, one of my first reactions was, well, another Tom Stoppard biography could be written that would be every bit as good and very different from this one. And I'm not saying that Stoppard is a monster. I'm not saying that there are any skeletons in his closet. Just it was the feeling that I had. Whereas, for instance, when I read, this is one of our greatest living biographers, and when I read her biography of, for instance, Edith Wharton, I did not feel that way. I finished it and thought, okay, that was just about perfect. It actually supersedes in many ways Lewis's biography of Edith Wharton. But there are more charged dynamics at work here, and I'm going to have to address that in my review. This is our greatest living biographer writing a life of our greatest living playwright with his help, with his knowledge, with his cooperation. A very different thing from someone coming along after the fact and assembling. And I've made mention on this channel many times that I am a big fan, oddly enough, I'm a big fan of so-called official lives, where a biographer wins a contest, running against other biographers in order to have access to primary documents, correspondence, interviews, doors opened, with a figure who is either still alive or very recently dead and still being vigilantly watched over by an estate. typically speaking, typically speaking, official lives like that have been characterized as almost worthless because it is assumed that they kowtow, that they're writing saints' lives in exchange for all that access. It's been my experience that most of the time the people who make those accusations are the authors of non-authorized biographies of the same figures. I don't trust it, and I have read a whopping number of these. This thing has to be considered an authorized life of Tom Stoppard. If it isn't, nothing is. I've read a whopping pile of authorized lives, and almost never, it probably 10% of that huge number, have I sensed anything, suspected anything like that. Any corner cutting. Sometimes when the person is alive and watching, you will get that. Or when the person is alive and a whole bunch of other people are watching and guarding their reputation. But freshly dead, or a person who's still alive but of a certain kind of personality, no. Most of the time when an official authorized biographer says, yes, so-and-so gave me access to all of their archives and all of their friends, but they imposed no schema or stricture on me at all, none whatsoever. They didn't want to hear about it. They said, here's access to everything, I trust your work, let the chips fall where they may. 9 times out of 10, when an authorized biographer says something like that, usually in their defensive introduction to their work, I believe it. 9 times out of 10, once I'm finished reading the work, I believe it. I look back and believe it. I think that's, well, anyway, that's what this is, and it's a major work, one of the year's major biographies. So I can't wait to go at it again now that I have the finished copy. Great, fantastic. Don't know how many of you have been to a Tom Stoppard play. That'd be interesting to know. I have only been to one myself, and I found it tedious and wordy and incredibly impressed with itself. and dramatically inert. Just where there was no, it was very clever and very witty, but there was no drama in it at all, none whatsoever. Drama being where you start to hold your breath without really intending to. You start to hold your breath, where you become emotionally committed to what's happening on the stage. And I don't think Tom Stoppard could write a play like that if he had a gun to his head. So I've only been to one. I don't know if that's true for the rest of you. Do you get involved with his work? One way or another, very glad to have this. Fantastic. Well, slowly but surely, I am building a shelf of the great biographies that are coming out in 2021. Those of you who are new to the channel might not have heard me say this a million times, but biographies are my favorite kind of book. They're my favorite kind of reading. Hands down, by a wide margin, even over history, and certainly over the made-up stories. No offense to Lady Joker Volume 1. And slowly, the year 2021 is building a small collection of absolutely indispensable biographies that you look at them and say, okay, regardless of what you think of the subject of this biography, like for instance Lucian Freud, no future biographer is going to be able to avoid this work. It's just indispensable. It's a brick in a wall, in a foundation. We've had a few of those, I think, so far this year, and the year is still young. so anyway, there you go. That is our mail for today. 1 fiction and 1 biography. So you have a big fat crime novel, as big as it is, it's only half the size of the whole thing, and the finished copy of Tom Stoppard. You're going to see this in your bookstores. You're probably going to see this in your bookstores too. That is it. Now, I don't know what other mail will come today. Believe it or not, even though I was just complaining about this yesterday, Boston is once again battening down for another snowstorm. Tomorrow. All day. The models that I have seen so far predict that this storm that it'll be even faster moving than the last one. Yesterday's storm lasted all day. It started around 10:30 in the morning, and it lasted until sunset, and then it stopped. So it went all day, dropped a heavy coating of bright white snow everywhere, and today has been cold, so that snow has barely melted at all. The models that I've seen so far for tomorrow's storm, it looks like it's smaller, weaker, and even faster. So it might not leave much in Boston. It will cover all the snow that we have now, and then from what I can tell, there's going to be a very brief rest, and then another snowstorm on the weekend. So I don't know how much mail I will get. We will see. We will see. If I get a substantial amount more today, I'll just sit down in front of the camera and make another mail haul. If not, I'll hold it over until tomorrow. I try not to open mail without you anymore. So I will wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you too.